The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
From the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, this is Legends. I'm Jason Bryant. Prepare for a journey through wrestling's past, present, and future, as we'll hear the great stories of wrestling and success from the true legends of the sport, here on Hall of Fame Legends. When the conversation among Pennsylvania wrestling fans turns to the best ever, Jefferson Morgan High School alum Cary Kolat's name is always in the mix. Kolat compiled a 137-0 high school record with 4 PIAA wrestling championships, and he was named the outstanding wrestler at the PIAA tournament each year he competed, an honor no other wrestler has achieved even twice. As a freshman at Penn State, Kolat won a Big Ten title and placed second at the NCAA championships at 134 pounds. As a sophomore, he was named Big Ten Wrestler of the Year and finished third at the NCAA tournament. Kolat sat out a year after transferring to Lock Haven University, but he came back to the mats better than ever, winning back-to-back titles at 142 pounds in 1996 and 1997 with a 2-year record of 50-1. Kolat won 2 PSAC Conference championships and back-to-back Eastern Wrestling League championships. He was named the outstanding wrestler both years and finished his college career with a 111-7 record with 53 falls. On the international level, Kolat was a member of the U.S. Freestyle team from 1997 to 2001 and won a silver medal at the World Championships in 1997 and a bronze medal in 1998. He won 3 World Cup golds, 1 World Cup silver, and 2 Pan American championships. He was University National Freestyle Champion in 1995 and the U.S. Open Champion in 1997, 1999, and 2000. For his record of success at the United States... For his record of success in the United States and around the world, Cary Kolat is honored as the distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2017. Now, with distinguished member class of 2017, Cary Kolat, one of the most dynamic and exciting wrestlers to ever grace at least my generation of wrestling. First of all, Cary, congratulations on your induction to the Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it, man. What's
it mean to you to realize that your head's going to be carved into granite and put on the wall in Stillwater, Oklahoma?
I was telling Reggie up there when I did the interview with them that, when I started, I never thought about the Hall of Fame. You know, you're a young guy, you're selfish at the time, you're only focused on your wrestling and winning medals. So I hadn't really thought about the Hall of Fame. And I think we all change as we get older. So I was saying to Reggie that it's probably the biggest accomplishment of my career. I mean, you're now etched, as you say, in marble. You're in the Hall of Fame. So I left a mark. I mean, I left a mark that my kids will see, and maybe they'll bring their kids through someday and see it and say, look, this is what your grandfather did. I mean, not that old yet, but it's permanent. You're in history. And so I'm very proud to be inducted this year.
A couple years ago, you and I were talking, and you asked me, what was I most known for in college? And I jokingly said, transferring? What do you think you were most known for in college? Or what would you like to be most known for in your college career?
Wow, I don't even really know how to answer that. I think when you said dynamic, I think I was creative. I always tell people I don't feel like there was one style that fit me. I felt like I was capable of wrestling multiple styles if needed, and I think I did a better job of that as I got older. Especially in my international career. In college, I think my setbacks came early on. I had mental lapses, and then as I got older, I got smarter and more intelligent, and I spent a little more time around Foxcatcher and Dave Schultz, and picked up things from them. But I think I picked up what most to approach was how to approach the sport in a calm fashion and mentally, and so I could compete better, down the road. And so I feel like I was creative in my style.
You mentioned Foxcatcher and Dave Schultz, and Nancy had a documentary, ESPN had a documentary, and Mark's story was made into a movie by Bennett Miller. With all that came through and kind of reintroduced Dave and Mark to the wrestling mainstream, what did that reintroduction mean for you, having to go through this stuff again?
When it happened, I think it hit so many people. I mean, I wasn't with Dave all the time, so there was closer friends to him than me. I was a young kid kind of looking up to him and trying to pick his brain, but it hit me. I think, my kids, when they saw it, they were kind of shocked and said, you lived there and you knew Dave. And so it was, I think when I finally saw the movie and I saw exactly what had happened, when you see it laid out like that, that was hard to watch because you actually were attached to that person. My wife, we hadn't met yet, before the movie came out and before David already passed, and she didn't know him, but she knew what he meant to me. I got his picture hanging up in my house, and when she saw it too, it hit her hard. It's gut wrenching to watch, but especially when you're attached to a person. So it was a little tough.
When we look back at your career and this past year or two, the curtain's kind of been peeled back a little bit on the inside of what's going on through Cary Kolat's head with the Flow documentary.
Yeah.
And talking about basically how many times you got screwed internationally. How hard is it for you to still talk about those moments, or did that documentary kind of allow you to speak on it with a little bit different of a mindset?
I never talked about it. I was raised in a way, don't make excuses, right? That's what wrestlers do. You don't make excuses. So I didn't talk about it because I felt like people would say, oh, you're crying or this and that. And then I think I broke the silence. I was at a clinic, and the guy, he actually works for Flow now, and I think that might have been why they picked up the story. But he had done a podcast, and I was doing a clinic for him in Jersey. I think it was the Rhino Wrestling Club. And
yeah, Mike Mao.
Yeah, Mike, yeah. And now he works at Flow. So I think that's might have been where it came from. And I was hesitant when they called me about doing it because, again, my mind was, will you cry? I tell my guys, you don't make excuses, but now I'm at the point where I was like, well, this is a story now. I don't compete anymore, so I'll, you want to know the story, I'll tell the story. And so I told the story, and I think it opened a lot of people's eyes, but it still exists today. I don't, everybody's acting like poor me. Poor me, my story was the one that got told, but I can promise you through the decades, there's a lot of guys that came before me, especially when it was the Soviets and it was the Eastern blocks versus all of, the
free world.
Yeah, the free world, it was happening so much more, I believe, and I just had some really bad situations that came up, and it is what it is. I live with it. I sit back and say, could I have done things better? Yeah. The only match that haunts me is the Olympic Games because I believe I could have won the rematch, but it was the one time where I couldn't clear my head. But I prepped right. I did things right. In my heart, I believe I was the best in the world at some times. I may not have the medal to show it, but, so that's how I walk around holding my head up high and coaching, and, I did the right things. Yeah.
Looking at your career now, as you're now coaching, and congratulations on your first All-American at Campbell University. This seems much like a different Cary Kolat as an athlete. How are Cary Kolat the athlete and Cary Kolat the coach different? You're
managing people. You're absolutely, man. When I recruit a kid and sit and talk with him and talk to his parents and stuff, I really have to put myself in their shoes. I have children someday, and I say, I'm going to relinquish my son or my daughter to somebody someday. And I hope they really do care for them, and I hope they really say what they mean, and I mean what they say. And so when we recruit, that's what I want. I want to make sure it is a team. I want to make sure it is a family. I tell my guys when we do get-togethers, don't bring your girlfriends, don't bring your mom and dad. It's all about us first. And I think the best teams do that. I think the best coaches do that. So we try to keep it as tight-knit as possible and stay on top of them. And I think in the end, the first thing they got to know is, hey, this guy really cares about me. He might be, putting a foot up my butt right now, but he really does care, and he's doing it for the right reason. So if you don't have the trust and you don't show you care, and that doesn't mean it's hugs and rainbows, it's not going to work. And so I think the things we're doing at Campbell right now, that's why it's working.
When you go back to your career coming through, Pennsylvania is the the gold standard for high school wrestling. It is. There's a reason 25% of the NCAA qualifiers are from that state. You came from that factory that is wrestling. When you look at the pressure that might exist on kids these days, because in your era, there wasn't the internet and, there was the local media coverage, but it's different. How do you go into a recruiting situation now, knowing what you've been through, and be like, okay, you're 2, 3, 4 time state champion. Here's what you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah. I give kids the benefit of the doubt. Is what I look at, because I say to myself, when I did what I did, I had a lot of attention, but there was no social media. So I don't know how I think my parents raised me right. I don't think it would have shaped my character any different. So
even with the cattle prod?
Yeah, even with the cattle prod, right? I don't think it would have affected me, but You never know. I wasn't, but these kids now, it's a different game. It's a much different game. I mean, I see some of these high school kids who have on Twitter 10,000 followers. I mean, they're.
I don't even have 10,000.
Yeah, they're small rock stars, right? And so, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so it's the type of kids we're looking for. I think we really got to keep. We got to get out there and fish and turn the rocks over a little bit more to find that kid that still is pretty solid in his character and knows how to do it, knows how to train, and can separate, the fake world from the real world when it comes to all that stuff. Because in the end, it's all fake. What's the only thing real you have is what you do in that room and what you do when you get on the mat. And everything else is just a hype machine. And so it's different. It's very different. So I think the pressures are different. And you pick the wrong role model. And a guy likes to chatter a lot on Twitter or social media, and somehow, you could go down and find yourself doing the wrong things or go down the wrong path and maybe even get yourself to the point where some coaches back off on recruiting.
When we turn back the clock even further, before high school, when you first discovered wrestling, what drew you to it?
Oh, I think it was just everybody in our town was Pennsylvania. They wrestled, I hear about rec programs. And when I grew up, if you came to the wrestling team, they said, okay, we train Monday through Friday and we wrestle on Saturday and you have one day off. I mean, that was just how we did. It wasn't 2 to 3 days of rec. When I ran a club in Maryland for a while, I remember looking at these kids and they're like, okay, how many days a week? 1, 2, and 5-day programs didn't exist. In Pennsylvania, that was just the norm. And my cousins wrestled and it's cold. So what else are you going to do? You can play basketball or you could wrestle. And, when the snow's on the ground and everybody wrestled, my cousins wrestled. So I got into it and I wasn't great at it, right at the beginning. I took my beatings and had my tears. And then the second year I got a little better. And third year things just started to click.
What do you remember most about your first ever match?
I remember I didn't have shoes. I was embarrassed that I didn't have wrestling shoes. I had sneakers. I wanted to have wrestling shoes. And then we had the cloth singlets with the cloth leggings that were rough and rip your ears off every time you took a shot. But I don't remember too much besides that. I was still trying to get my feet wet in it.
At what point did you realize that I'm a wrestler?
After my second season, my father introduced me he said, look, there's a summer wrestling called freestyle. This is how you score points. Would you be interested in it? And I always told what the big thing that changed me was in freestyle, it was 15-point tech. Front headlock was unlimited. So you could grab a guy by the head and roll him around as much as you want. And I think I teched the guy in like 20 seconds and I looked up and it was 15-0. And at that point I was hooked on freestyle. And then obviously because of that, freestyle led me to a passion for folk style and then just trying to win 4 NCAA titles and 4 Pennsylvania titles. And it just took off. So that one match that clicked in freestyle is what did it.
In a state like Pennsylvania, a lot of lore, a lot of history, a lot of people that come back to the state and coach. And that's why a lot of people believe that the systems there are so good because the college All-Americans come back and then coach in their alma mater in a school system. It's a great tool for teaching and being a teacher and a coach. But who were your first wrestling heroes, wrestlers that you're like, I want to be like that guy?
Well, in 84, I watched Dave and Mark Schultz win Olympic gold medals. I watched Bruce Baumgartner win Olympic gold medals. And so I don't think I really had heroes. I think this is where I was wired a little bit differently. And I was like, man, I want to be as good as them. I don't think I was idolizing them in the sense that, can I have your autograph? If I came in contact with those guys, it was more about picking their brain. And that was kind of how I approached it. But so those guys immediately were the big impacts. And then, down the road, then John Smith hit the circuit and some others. So.
When you first broke onto the senior scene, who was the first guy that really you remember welcoming you to the senior level going, not so fast, kid?
There was quite a few. John Fisher was one. He was the biggest thorn in my side. I always tell people I started wrestling that guy in high school and I couldn't get past him. He always outsmarted me is what he did. It took me a while before I finally made a change and the change I made to get over the 6 beatings that I think I took from him was, you know what, I'm going to stall. And I finally said, like, this guy lets me take 50 shots, and then he capitalizes on one of them, and I'm like, I'm gonna play the game, and I felt like the first thing I always tell my guys now, first thing we need to do is win. If we got to win by 1 point, win by 1 point. Then after we get over the win, then we start spreading the score, and with John, that's how I approached him. I first just had to get a win and a win column on him, and I took him to overtime and I beat him, and then the next time we wrestled, I was beating him again. Then he pinned me, But John was the first one that I'd say really welcomed me, spanked me for years.
When you look at the kids that are coming through nowadays, do you think more kids that are, say, seniors in high school should be maybe testing the waters at their senior level, or do you think it's just an individual decision? I'll stay the juniors. I won't go to the seniors yet.
I think it's an individual. Look, because I wrestled up, we didn't really have all the stuff we have now. Cadet World Championships was like once every 2 years, and I wrestled in the Cadet Worlds, and it was in Warrensburg, Missouri, and there was like 6 other teams. So now you have things that
you're not going to France.
Yeah, we weren't doing that stuff. So now it makes sense to go to the Cadet Worlds, go to the junior teams. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, were saying, well, Mark Hall should go the Open. No, I don't think he should. I think he's right where he's at. Like, he's getting prepped for when he gets there, and that junior world title was shown that it makes you, it allows you to get that international experience and get your feet wet. I wrestled in the U.S. Open 13 times when you add up my high school years and my college years and my international years, and I won it 3 times. And so even though I started wrestling in high school, I did not get there any sooner than anybody else. I was competitive. But I think maybe had I had more of these junior world team trials and things of that nature, maybe I'd have been even more competitive and maybe would have made a team earlier. I didn't make it to my senior year in college. So just because I was wrestling up, I was competitive. I could compete, but I really wasn't getting past those guys at the time. I used to think I was going to beat John Smith. But if you look at my wrestling and track history, I wasn't going to beat him. He was in my weight and I was in high school wrestling in his weight class. I wasn't ready to beat John Smith. I wasn't ready to beat Tom Brands. I wasn't, I could have maybe hung a little bit, but so just because I was in it, but I didn't have as many options. High school, I was definitely past the guys in high school at the time, and so that was kind of the next step for me, was just to compete there.
When did the switch flip for you, going, okay, I'm finally hanging there with John Fisher to become an elite level freestyle wrestler?
When John pinned me in the '96 Olympic trials, I was beating him. I could have been in the finals against Tom. I had the match in my hands and I let it get away because I went back to not thinking smart and lost focus, and I wasn't a thrower, and I found myself going from a single leg to a body lock and tried to throw the guy and got pinned. And at that point I just said to myself, I'm wrestling stupid. I'm doing things that don't make sense, that are out of character for me. And so I sat back and I watched Tom Brands win the gold medal, and I said, what are the things that this guy's doing that I'm not doing? And so I implemented some things that he did, and some of that was, just obviously be more aggressive when you watch Tom. And then I was taking things from Dave and taking things from John Smith. And so the flip happened after the summer of '96. My senior season, I feel, pretty much was a breeze in college in terms of the scores might have been racked up, but my positioning was just very confident. I never felt like I was in danger. And then when I went to the '97 World Championships, I always tell people this wasn't a sign of defeat. I watched that tournament. They staggered the weight classes, and I remember watching these guys the first day, and I said to myself, I'm not as good as any of these guys in here. Like, I'm not this good. I'm not this technical. But the only way I'm going to know where I'm at for the next 4-year quad is to open up. If I hold back, I'm not going to make it. If I go in here trying to win the world title and not open up my wrestling, I won't see where I stack out, and I'll end up taking a silver that year. And so from '96 summer of getting pinned by John Fisher and watching Tom Brands win the gold medal and getting through my senior year and being confident in the U.S. Open and with my position and being able to be honest with myself at the '97 World Championships and say, wrestle, let's just see where you're at. That was all those things in combination is what did it for me.
A lot of things that lead people to become great wrestlers are their coaches along the way. One of the coaches that maybe is underrated, and you had him when you transferred to Lock Haven, is Carl Poff. What was it about him that changed the game for you?
Well, Carl was a great recruiter, man. Him and Bonomo were awesome at recruiting. Those guys were really good, and we had really good guys. We had 5 All-Americans on that team. And, they did a good job of
running. Tiny Lock Haven.
For Tiny Lock Haven. They had a national champ. But when I was transferring, I remember wrestling Mike Rogers, and I teched him when we wrestled, but I felt I was like a half a second ahead of him in every position. I'm like, this guy's going to be good. I was just ahead of him, but you could tell his upside was going to be huge. And Mike made people better before I got there. Then Mike Guerin, he had only a couple things that he did, but man, he could do them. When he locked his hands on a leg, he never gave up. So they had created a culture of, man, if you're in the lineup, you better go win. We expect to win no matter if it's Penn State, no matter if it's Iowa, whoever it is. And we were wrestling those teams. And We beat Penn State. I think we were pretty competitive that year with Iowa. So that was what they had done. They had gotten good guys in a room who tried to beat the heck out of each other every day.
When you look at your career in hindsight and you look at the accolades that you've compiled beyond high school, does the term distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame seem to fit?
I don't know. I mean, maybe in years, I don't know. I never thought about the word distinguished. I mean, the accolades, I think, if anything, it should say, man, I'm 44 and here we are 40 years later and I'm still here. You know, there was so many people that just dropped off on the path that I started. I mean, I started at 5, and I think my biggest accomplishment, is that I stuck with it. There's days I look back and I'm like, man, why did I stick with it so long? Like how did I make it through all the setbacks that I had? Because it's what the sport was full of is total setbacks.
Do you feel like you were misunderstood as not a wrestler or coach, but just kind of a being in the sport of wrestling? The story of Cary Kolat is not one that a whole lot of people really know. Do you think that's true or false?
I don't know. I think, I don't know. I don't think I was misunderstood. I don't think people could figure me out exactly. I think that's what it was. And they tried to come up with their own opinions of what was going on in my mind. Maybe some people said thought I was arrogant, but I wasn't arrogant. I tell my guys, if it didn't make me better at the time when I was a competitor, I just dropped it like an old hat and left it. I didn't need it in my life. And, so that might have been seen as arrogance. Transferring might have been seen as I thought I was too good for Penn State, or I thought I knew more than what they knew. That wasn't it. There was a lot of things that went into that. Lock Haven was a good fit for me. It allowed me to be creative. I don't feel like I was put in a box as much, and they kind of backed off and let me do my thing. And I think that's what my high school coach was really good at doing. He knew how to manage me, and wasn't that I was a prima donna. It was just, I wanted things a certain way. I wanted practices to be hard all the time. I wanted this to be happening. I just had a set list of things that I need to check off every day to be successful.
When we look at the future of Cary Kolat, there's a lot of talk about any big school opening. They're kind of, oh, well, he's doing a good job at Campbell. It almost thinks like they expect you to jump from a school you've been openly passionate about since the first time you stepped on campus there,
right,
at a dual meet when you were assistant at Carolina. How do you see your career at Campbell going?
Well, I love Campbell, man. Look, I told people all the time, I'd be crazy to leave with the administration that is there supporting us. And they support all the sports. Don't get me wrong. They support it all. But wrestling it's in danger in a lot of places, and, in April, we're talking about, building a $2 million facility now. I thought it was 2 years out. We're talking about doing it in April now. I've got 55 guys coming into my roster. Big reason I went to Campbell was because they said they were a school of opportunity. And at Lock Haven, we had 55 guys in the room. And there was no doubt that we had a different mix of skill levels. We had guys who were, light years ahead of other guys. But the one thing that we had was a culture of, if you go in the lineup and put the singlet on, you better win, and you better train when you're in here. And that's what we're doing at Campbell. We've got 55 guys. We've got some guys who are upper skill level who can get on the stand now on a regular basis. And we've got some guys coming in and need some work, but the family unit is all the same. The training method is all the same. And, they're in it. I mean, they're in it and invested in it. And I went from having a staff of 2, to now having a staff of 5, so they're invested in it. They saw what we did last year. My AD stayed down in that stinky, sweaty warm-up area for 10 hours, and he got a full taste of what it's like. And when Nathan became an All-American and you were actually announcing it and calling it out, I mean, he was hooked on it and realized that Campbell can compete, like small schools can compete in wrestling. That's where they can make their mark. And so they're all in. And so for me to leave just because, I got a big time program. That's the thing. I have a big time program and it's a school of 4,000, but it's a big time program.
And one thing we haven't touched on is Campbell won the Southern Conference Wrestling Championship this year, whereas historically, no, whatever conference it was, whether it be the old Colonial when I was at ODU and Campbell was in the CAA, or the East Region, or it was an affiliate of the Southern Conference. From a school, it's a Big South essentially school. We got those small programs to win the Southern Conference, which is, it's a peer conference, even though as an affiliate, that's got to be good for the administration as well.
Yeah, they were extremely happy. I mean, I got an email from my boss today, and we don't get the count toward the cup that our conference is in because you have football and basketball and that. But had wrestling been in there, we won our conference, we'd have won our cup standings as well. I mean, we did well overall as an athletic program. He's made major changes. And those changes, and the reason we have success, he's a good guy. I mean, he's a genuine person. But we had never won. And I had us on a track of thinking in 4 years. I thought it would take 4 years. And the reason we got over the hump this year was I was able to bring in Scotty Sentez and Garrett Kiley, and Evan Henderson, and those guys were, without them, because the team was already in place, but without having all those hands on deck to start really capitalizing and being able to really individually work with people, it wouldn't have happened, I don't think. I think all those guys we have unique personalities that mesh perfectly together. I got something for some guys, Scotty's got something, Garrett's got something, Evan's got something. And that was what did it for us. That's what got us over the hurdle. And now, we added Mike Evans to the staff, and so we've got a little bit for everybody with a little bit of a different mindset, but it's not clashing. I think that's the biggest thing. When I was interviewing people and resumes were coming across the desk, that was the most important thing. Will this guy fit? Is he going to fit with the guys and fit with the staff? And I think I got lucky and got it right.
Because Mike Evans has a killer mustache. Garrett's from Iowa. Yeah. Sentes wears his Superman pajamas still probably. But when you look at the people you're going in with, this is a pretty good class. Tony Gizzoni is from Pennsylvania, won a Waynesburg, two-time champ from Waynesburg back in the 50s, a trailblazer for Pennsylvania college wrestling. And you got Chuck Yeaglin, Andre Mesker. I mean, two of the greats. What's it mean to go in with that group as distinguished members? Yeah, I mean,
you're standing up there with guys who you feel like, hey, these guys thought and approached it the same way I did. My assistant coach when I was in high school, I think he was 65 or 70 years old at the time, and he used to tell me all the time about this guy Tony Gizzoni, who was better than me. He used to say, "Kolat, you're good, but this guy was better," all the time.
You don't have a move named after you.
Yeah, right. And now here I am going in the year I'm going in with him. And Ernie has passed now. That was a long time ago. But I was just talking to my high school coaches here. It's funny that I'm going in at the same time as him and Yagla, who refs some matches against for me, and I think sometimes against me, maybe, I don't know. And then, but no, he was a hammer, and so yeah, I mean, going in with guys like this, you're in the same kind of class who had the same mindset, and you can appreciate each other.
Last time you wrestled was what, 2010 or 2011 U.S. Open? Which
2011.
Okay, so you were
12. No, I wrestled in Olympic trials at 12 too. Yeah.
Why wrestle that deep? Were you trying to make the teams then, or were you just sitting there saying, "Do I still got it?"
No, I think I did. I if I look back, what I should have done is taken. It took me a while to get over the Olympic thing. I think mentally, I just, but the problem with your mind is your mind still thinks you're in your 20s and you keep going, and
the used to coulds.
Yeah. And I could get in the room and I could scrap. And I could roll, and I felt good, and I wasn't training the way I should have been training for those things. I had other things going on. I had kids, and I was taking care of my kids, and I was coaching a team, but I still think I thought I could. In 2012, I finally got it out of me. When I was in that match, I felt like I'm like, this is it, I'm done. I have the drive is not there anymore. In 11, I had a good run. I went up in 2011 and said, I'm just going to see what I was going to do. That was really the test to see if 2012 was possible. And then, and probably the worst thing for me was taking second, because then I said, well, I can do this again, but I wasn't training the right way. I was trying to coach and that, and you can't do it. You can't do it that way. You have to be all in. And I wasn't all in.
I remember walking off the mat. I was doing the TV, and I remember you walking off the mat. I gave you about 10, 15 minutes before I come up and talk to you. I actually aware of that. And I said, dude, it's a pleasure to watch you wrestle. And your response was like, okay, thanks. And it was like, okay, that's because, we've got some mutual friends along the way. And I never really understood who you were until after that fact. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, it really was a pleasure to watch you wrestle. And congratulations on your induction to the Hall of Fame.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
With his presenter, his former coach, Pat Santoro, distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Cary, Kolat.
So, first, let me thank Doc Bennett for ruining my speech with that video, because now I have nothing left to really talk about. No, Doc, that was excellent. I didn't know what to say when I got up here. Like I said, when I started my career, you set out as an athlete to achieve individually, and the Hall of Fame was nothing I had thought about during my competitive years. And now that it's here, I have to first say thank you to those who nominated me and voted me in. And this event has been unbelievable. I have tried to just soak it in. I'll probably never get a moment like this again. And coming in contact with the people I haven't seen in some of them in 10, 15 years has just been great. And it's been unbelievable. And so I thank the National Hall of Fame for the event they've done, for Leroy, the day that you called me and asked me if I was going to accept and be here. And I said, absolutely. It's just an honor. So I'm going to go through what I did write down. So first, I want to thank everyone who spoke on my behalf. My old high school coach, Ron Headley, John Gira. I know it's not easy to get in front of people, and I appreciate you making the trip out and doing that for me. Those who traveled, to come and see me. My teammates from Penn State surprised me. I sent them an invite. I hadn't heard from them, and they never said anything, and then they showed up. That's John and Russ Hughes and Sinshiro Abe. Thank you for the surprise. It was great to see you guys and spend time again. And I got to thank my parents who, they couldn't make the trip out, but without their support, I wouldn't be here today. And it's just, like I said, it's just been unbelievable. This class, I have a connection, through people in this class, through wrestling, the sport, and a more personal connection, and obviously, Sierra and Dayton, congratulations on your acceptance and being here tonight. And, Mike Haggerty, you were the first guy that coached me on an international team that we put together through the United States when I was 16 years old. And so, here we are today, going into the Hall of Fame together. So it's just unbelievable. And Greg Hatcher, I don't know where you're sitting at, but we need more people like you. Going into the Hall of Fame with somebody like you is just unbelievable. The things that you're doing for our sport and not just wrestling, the kids that you're touching, it's, we need more people like you in this world, definitely. Thomas Green, I'm not sure where you're sitting at. What you battled through is an inspiration, but every kid you touch now is they know, you can achieve anything, and you're going to have setbacks, and that's just unbelievable. Your story is unbelievable, and it inspires me. And to be going in with you is unbelievable, and congratulations. I'm glad to be here. Dominic Dory, where are you? I can't see you right here. There. Again, congrats. Going into the Hall of Fame with an astronaut, listening to your coach and reaching for the stars, and he did it 4 times. 2 more and you tie John Smith and you're good, right? So we'll be there. I have to get a picture with you too for my son when I go home, so I can say I got a picture with an astronaut before I get out of here. Tony Gazzoni, I've probably heard your name more than you've heard it. My high school assistant coach was 71 years old at the time. And with all honesty, he was dead serious. He was an honest man. He was a great man. He's not here with us today, but for him, I know he's down there saying, Tony and Cary going into the Hall of Fame together, but he was, in the area of Waynesburg, and he would tell me all the time that, Cary, you're going to be the next state champion at Jefferson Morgan. You make us all proud, but you would have never beaten Tony Gazzoni. And he was dead serious. And, to finally meet the man and finally really understand the Gazzoni role, because Ernie was his name, and he would get very excited when you were wrestling, and he would scream Gazzoni from every position. And it confused us. It confused us. Even today when we got here, when we finally found it, we got to meet him, we had to ask him what exactly was the Gazzoni role, because I never knew where it was coming from half the time. Hopefully I'm not missing anybody. I got my pages up here. Andre Metzger, we're connected. We are connected. I think I told you a little bit, but we have a story, and I don't think you know the story, but you came to a clinic in my town when I was 9 years old, I was trying to perfect the sport, and I loved freestyle, and I was trying to learn how to throw people when you were teaching a clinic, and I told you this, but I didn't finish the story because I wanted to save it for this speech here. And so I kind of positioned myself and got closer to you and closer to you, and you were teaching, and I was doing arm spins, and I loved throwing people on their head and arm spin, and I was just waiting for that thumbs up, and I never really got one. So I'm hoping tonight I can get it as we go into the Hall of Fame together. Chuck Yagla, I am known for, where are you, Chuck? I am known for having one of the greatest college matches in history. I'm pretty sure there were some extra stall calls the other way in that bout. No, honestly. That was, Chuck, going in with you and a guy who wrestled with Dan Gable and a national champion. I mean, it's unbelievable. And like I said, I'm overwhelmed. I didn't really know when I got up here everything I was going to say, but last I have to say this, and the video kind of said it for it, but when I look back at everything, I set out to be, the best wrestler I could. I mean, I did everything I possibly thought I could do to achieve a world championship or an Olympic dream, and it didn't happen for me. But when I look back, I identified with a gold medal. Even though I didn't have it, I identified with it. And everything I did was I pictured myself with it. And so when I didn't get it, I look back and I say, here's what I got. When I won my second NCAA title, the ESPN raised my hand and they freeze framed for a second. And there were two guys under my arm. And one would be my future father-in-law and my brother-in-law, who I had no connection with whatsoever. And then I was flying out of Baltimore about a year later, and I procrastinated getting a hotel. I was living in Lock Haven at the time, and my buddy says to me, well, look, I got a friend in Baltimore. You can stay at his house, and then fly out of there. And I was one of these guys that like to throw my stuff places, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know the people. And so then I decided, well, I'll cruise in at like 7 at night, and then I don't have to chat too much, and I can sleep and then catch my plane in the morning. And then this girl walks in, and for about 10 seconds, she says hello and nice to meet you, and boom, she was out. Maybe she was going on a date or something, I don't know. And but anyway, it stuck with me. And then I caught a plane to Oregon, and when I got there, my buddy was there, and I said, hey, that girl, that I stayed, he goes, yeah, that girl. I said, do you think her father would be okay if I called and asked her out? And he said, sure, let me make a call for you. So he called my future father-in-law and said, hey, Cary was there. He would like to ask Aaron out, and he wanted to know if you'd be okay with it. And obviously he agreed. But Gary, even if you said no, I would have still gone through with it, just so you know. And I flew back to Baltimore, and 10 months later we were married. And when I get back to identifying with the gold medal, those were tough years for me. There was times when I was like, man, I may walk from this sport. It was hard not achieving after you've put so many years into something, not achieving it. And I just say, Aaron, if you weren't there, I wouldn't have made it. You know what I mean? So I think that's what it was. I think that's why I took that flight. I think that's why I procrastinated getting a hotel, and you were there at the right time. I think that's what wrestling, had in store for me, that I would get through this and I'd be stronger for it, and I would build relationships with people that would last forever. And like I said in the video, that's life. You don't get everything you want, and you roll with it. And so I love you, and I'm glad you're here tonight. I tell my guys, and when I tell my guys that you don't get there without we. That's the only way you're going to get there. It's we first, me second. And as a coach, if I can get everybody thinking that way, I know that I actually am creating stronger individuals. And I wouldn't be here without a big group of we's, that's for sure. There were so many people that touched my life and impacted me in different ways. And some people I never even had conversations with, John, I see you sitting there like, having a guy that has enough gold medals to make a wind chime in your corner at the World Championship's unbelievable, and that Tadiev match, I really am. I look at that moment. There was times you were shaking your head at me, but then when I won and you jumped up, it's something I'll remember, and I'm glad you were there. And there's just so many other people. So I have a list. I'm going to go through it, and hopefully I don't forget everybody. Gary and Barb Sarago for making the trip to come out and see me and be here tonight and share this with me. unbelievable. My Bob Roller, my AD, coming out to be here part of this moment. Thank you. Craig Turnbull, been a friend since I was 8 years old, you know. Recruited me twice, didn't get me, and here you are still supporting me, so I appreciate it. Don't have my glass here. Pat Santoro, you know, we had 1 year together in college, and it was an impact. And, you know, you're one of the coaches when I look at your characters, your reputation is nationwide, and I try to just take pieces of you and use it when I coach now. John and Russ Hughes for being, you know, we've known each other since our high school days in Pennsylvania. Having you guys here tonight, it's great. Sinshiro Abe, you know, world teams traveled together, got to see a lot of things together, you know, roommates. Thank you again for coming out. Sorry, I don't have my glasses, and it is tough for me. John and Mullane, you know, John was, like I said, I was a 15-year-old kid traveling the world with Team Foxcatcher, and you could easily get caught up in things, and John was a great mentor. I think he didn't realize that he kept me under his wing and you know, made sure I stayed on the straight and narrow, and we've been friends, you know, close friends ever since. Jesse and Maria Lang from Rudis, you know, in the last couple of years, we've gotten to know each other, and for you to come out, I really appreciate it. Terry and Babe and Jeannie Sarago, again, my wife's family, my extended family, thank you. You know, you went to Australia with me. You were there in the hard ones, and here you are again, and it's great to see you. Neil Edelberg and Jimmy Howard and Ron Headley, my coaches and friends, and again, thank you. But to the class that I'm going in with, it's an honor. It is an honor to go in with you tonight into the National Hall of Fame, and for everyone here to be part of it. I really do appreciate it, and God bless you, and thank you.
Legends is presented by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and produced by the Matt Talk Podcast Network. If you want to hear more from wrestling's legends, contribute to this ongoing project at halloffamenelegends.org/contribute. One-time and small monthly donation options are available. We hope you've enjoyed this look into wrestling history. This has been Legends. I'm Jason Bryant.